the managing editor at Semafor Africa. Alexis, always a pleasure to have you on. How effective do you think these three countries can be in fighting insurgents when we look at their previous record of trying to keep their territories safe?
I think they're going to struggle to be effective. That said, they're starting from a very low base. But what I mean is they have struggled, frankly, in a big way to contain these insurgencies. And so it will be difficult for them to do worse than they've done by themselves. Niger, in particular, had done quite well when it was under its democratically elected leader. We had support from the French, and the US were involved as well. And then we've seen in the second half of 2023 an uptick in attacks and more people being killed. The same goes for Burkina Faso. The same goes for Mali. Mali made a big show of pushing out the French, pushing out MINUSMA, the peacekeeping force there. And frankly, they've all struggled. So I think it'll be difficult for them to do worse than they've done to this point when they've been by themselves. They see some kind of value in collective force and working together.
I want to bring a few different factors in together here, Alexis, because the EU has placed sanctions on those military juntas. They're out of ECOWAS, the West African Economic Group, and the Russian Wagner Group is there. How do all of those things then play into the hands of the insurgents who could take advantage of the fact that there are these spaces where the juntas might be struggling?
Absolutely. There are vast tracts of space, ungoverned spaces in all of those regions and across the Sahel. And it's absolutely in the insurgents' best interest to take advantage of this. And they can do so because these countries are struggling because of the sanctions. If you look at the ECOWAS sanctions, they've taken their toll economically. The same goes for the EU sanctions as well. And so really, it's very, very difficult for these countries, for Niger, for Burkina Faso, and for Mali, to actually fight back. And that's why we're seeing this collective force. This does play into the hands of the Russians because in light of these sanctions imposed by ECOWAS and by the EU, the Russians can offer a fighting force, they can offer capabilities, they can offer helicopters, hardware, training, and as well as that, in response, what they would want is access to natural resources. But I mean, it definitely does play into the hands of the insurgents. The insurgents are on the front foot, and a lot of the reason why fundamentally we've seen this wave of juntas coming into power and democratically elected governments being toppled is because there is popular unhappiness, popular sentiment, whereby people feel that they're not being defended. Thousands of people have been killed, millions have been forced to move their homes because they're being slaughtered and their lives are being upended. Now, these military juntas have come in place and they said that they could do better and they have been failing. And so they need to act quickly. Otherwise, they will see themselves being toppled. And I strongly suspect that that might also be part of this reason of this idea of collective action, whereby if they were to find themselves on the receiving end of a coup or a coup attempt, perhaps they could call on neighboring forces in the other countries to come and defend them. Because without that, then really they're just sitting there waiting to be attacked either by insurgents or from some kind of force internally, maybe within their own ranks.
You know, we've been covering the insecurity in Nigeria, and everybody knows that there's the Boko Haram group, but also these many disparate other armed groups that are going around the country, kidnapping and terrorizing people. How does that fit into what's happening with these three military junta-ruled countries?
I think that's a great question. I think the situation in Nigeria is inextricably linked to what's going on in these three countries because the armed forces in Nigeria are massively overstretched. They are dealing, as you say, with what's happening in the northeast with Boko Haram and Islamic State in West Africa province, as well as the northwest, where there are these many disparate groups of what they call bandits, which are just roving guns for hire, who are gangs who carry out kidnappings. And these different groups will go across borders. They will go across porous borders. We've seen it in the northeast with the insurgencies there around the Lake Chad area, and that's been affecting Niger for quite some time across Niger's southern border, across the southeast and then southwest as well. And then in the northwest of Nigeria, they can then go and they cross the borders and they can go and attack Burkina Faso, and they can go beyond there into Mali. Now, the fact of the matter is this is connected to Nigeria because Nigeria is overstretched and it cannot deal with these insurgencies, these different problems they've got. I mean, with Nigeria, we also see fighting between settled farmers and semi-nomadic herdsmen in the center of the country. And then there's a breakaway group in the southeast as well who are calling for some kind of separatist movement, return of the Biafran state. So those problems in Nigeria mean that you can have a pool of insurgencies building up and different groups, different disparate groups that come up and then attacked different countries. And so I think definitely this is all connected.
Alexis, always a fascinating analysis that we get from you. Thank you so much indeed, and look forward to the next time.
Thank you.